Chris, another of the massive forces that you've talked about is AI. Do you have a concept of what the end game is with AI and how we're going to get there?
So I think that the end game with AI is having a sovereign capability in AI in Australia, in those areas in which Australia can meaningfully contribute or hold that capability. It would be probably too much to expect Australia to be able to have a sovereign capability equal to what the United States might have, or the United Kingdom might have, or China, or somewhere else. But certainly, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have an AI capability in areas where it's very, very important for us to have that sort of capability. One of those areas might be obviously in energy, another one might be in other parts of dual purpose infrastructure. That's infrastructure which is used for either a civilian use or also maybe used for a defense purpose. And so having that AI capability will be important. And I think the government's investment earlier this year into Harrison AI and their investment last year into quantum computing does reflect that there's an acceptance that there is a challenge and a need there. But we can't be all things to all people. We've got to pick where we're going to be able to hold our own and what we can win in.
And how do we determine that? What are the parameters that we need to be thinking about?
Well, I think we really need to think about, firstly, where our vulnerabilities are, where our strengths are, and what our national interest is in this space, what the government seeks to achieve in this space, what it needs to protect, and in terms of resilience, what we need to have here locally rather than
So,
relying
so
on
what do you mean by
overseas.
that? What are our vulnerabilities?
Well, for example, an AI capability in critical infrastructure would include presumably an AI capability that allowed our energy systems to work at the edge and in the center more effectively, and it allowed the coordination, a better orchestration or coordination between rooftop solar generation for retail customers like you and me, and some of the larger utility generation projects, whether they're renewable or thermal power elsewhere in the country. And the orchestration of that, the delivery of those electrons really to you, I think, as I've said before, making sure you get the power you need, not the power you want, without you even feeling the difference. And in that place, it's quite transformational because in that place, the byte of data that controls the electron really becomes more valuable than the underlying electron itself. That is to say, that the AI component of the energy transition becomes more valuable than the generation of the power that you're actually consuming. It's a really big difference. It changes the way we need to think about the energy transition completely. Also, I think, as I've said before, there's a bit of a symbiosis there between AI and the energy transition on the AI consumption side. That is to say, we need to make sure that we have, a stable, affordable, and reliable energy system to allow us to capitalize on the opportunities that AI are going to bring to us.
So should we be thinking of AI in terms of 5 years down the path, 10 years down the path, 30 years down the path?
I don't think we've got 10 or 30 years, to be honest, Wilco. It's progressing so quickly that even 5 years is a long term in AI. There was a really great paper put out about a year ago called Situational Awareness. It talks about the speed at which AI is developing and the enormous changes and the opportunities and the challenges that it presents. And it talks about these changes and opportunities in timeframes that are shorter than 5 years. So we don't really have 5 years. We need to build this sovereign capability now, and that's a very significant infrastructure undertaking. And we have clients that are engaged in that at the moment.
So the communication challenge here is getting that across in a way that doesn't terrify people. I'm just wondering how we do that.
Well, I think, in many ways, a lot of people are talking about AI as if it were terrifying. But also in many ways, it's going to present us with so many opportunities as well, isn't it? Right. So there are solutions to problems out there that we haven't even thought of yet, that haven't occurred to us, that will become evident or possible or thought about through and with AI. It doesn't need to be terrifying. There's no doubt that great opportunities await us with artificial intelligence. And by sitting back and thinking about it only in terms of its challenges, we're never going to be able to take those opportunities. So we need to be able to do that. We need to mobilise again. We need to mobilise capital. We need to unlock capital, compete for that capital, take away some of the regulatory burden that is preventing us from being able to take advantage of these opportunities in order to be able to do that.
Chris Flynn, thank you very much.